Hello and welcome everyone to our nightly news show. I'm Dale Matthews. We're joined by Bill Hunker and Mike Jones. Hello, Mike.
Yes. Hello.
Hello, Dale. Hello, Mike.
Hi.
Hey, Bill.
So events, once again, news events in the area have overtaken us in tonight's show. And we're going to start off by talking about the bomb threat that was called in apparently through 911 about Rowe Community College, the Redwood campus. That's the one locally in Grants Pass. And how that's turned out as it looks now. It was something that happened when I was in school, is every once in a while someone would pull the fire alarm or they'd call in a bomb threat and everybody got to go home early. Now, we did not know that this morning. And what happened this morning was there was some notice that was put out by the Rowe Community College, and Mike is going to also play a bit from one of the TV stations. Go ahead and play that from the TV station there, Mike.
Okay. Oh, naturally.
Oh, it's not working?
There's never not a technical snafu. All right, stand by. Okay, here we go.
We start with breaking news. Both Rowe Community College locations are closed. All students and staff have been told to evacuate. Just minutes ago, the campus received an unconfirmed security threat. RCC leaders are taking this very seriously, although they have said there has been no proof found of any real concern here. But of course, given the recent events in Roseburg, everyone is taking any risk very seriously. Rowe Community College, the Redwood campus, just tweeted out about 40 minutes ago. It says simply, there is a threat on campus. It has asked everyone to evacuate all RCC campuses immediately.
Okay. So that's essentially what was going on. It appears that I should have filtered the mic a little bit better. Because that was the only way I can pick it up. I couldn't direct line out from the TV as I was pulling this audio.
Well, I'm telling everybody that watches our show that we do this show without the same kind of filters that you would normally get on the news that are introduced by the Daily Courier. So I'm glad you did it that way.
You can imagine the breath of the newscaster wafting over your face as you hear her, popping the mic there. So, okay.
Yeah.
And then, so that was basically the announcement of what was going on at that time. This is 11 a.m. this morning that this happened. And then at about 11:15, they had on the PIO, the Public Information Officer from RCC, and they had a little back and forth about what was going on, what the current status of stuff was, and that is right here.
Now, we want to go back to the Rowe Community College concerns this morning. Both campuses evacuated because of a security threat. Grant Walker at the Rowe Community College PIO joins us. Grant, thanks for your time.
Hello.
Grant, can you tell us what's going on?
Yes, the Redwood campus in Grants Pass received a threat this morning just before 10 o'clock. An alert went out to everybody, and we evacuated that campus and called police. At this time, that campus is closed, and police are there with a command post, and they are evaluating the situation.
Okay, so
yeah.
Oh, continue.
Also, just at the same time, just as a precaution for the safety of everyone at Rowe Community College, we have closed all of our campuses and evacuated them for the day.
Okay, that was my next question. Taking this so seriously that you would evacuate every RCC campus, why is that?
We just want to take every possible precaution.
Have you heard anything from officials, what they're finding out there at this point?
No, I have not. I have been on my way from the Medford campus to Grants Pass. I just arrived. I'm at the east entrance. There's police here with a checkpoint. I'm about to go through and then go to the command center, and I will know more then.
Okay, we'll be definitely checking back in with you then. So I assume you haven't yet had a chance to talk with the students, talk with parents that may have rushed to RCC.
No, not at this time.
Okay, speaking of parents, if there are parents watching and they're concerned about their children that maybe attend RCC, what would you suggest they do?
Certainly contact your children, but they have evacuated the campuses. We have gotten everybody out, and the only people on the campus at this time are police and staff.
Okay. Any
Some
idea?
staff. Yeah.
So school, I assume, is canceled for the rest of the day?
Yes, school, all classes are canceled for today and tonight.
Okay. When will you make any decisions about further classes?
That's correct.
When will you make any decisions about further classes, maybe later on this week?
After we evaluate the situation and after police have made a full assessment of exactly what the threat was and how credible it was, and if the threat continues.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about that threat, what you found out just this morning. It came through around 10 o'clock, is that right?
It was just, I believe it was just before 10 o'clock. I don't know exactly when yet. The threat said that it was a bomb threat. There have been reports that the threat included a threat of armed people on campus, but I cannot verify if that was part of the threat, but they certainly have closed the campus and there's been no sightings.
Okay. It sounds like at this point that there hasn't been anything that would be truly alarming. Is that right? Like gunshots or something like that to spell it out?
That is correct. At this point, it's all precaution.
Okay. All right, Grant Walker, PIO, RCC, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay. Now the notice that Rogue Community College put up on their Facebook site said that a bomb threat's been received. This was about half an hour after the original call. Law enforcement's investigating. Evacuate campus immediately. Okay. Do not wait at an on-campus transit stop. Well, that ratchets it up the anxiety a little bit. Take purses, backpacks, and cell phones. Leave other items behind. That ratchets it up a couple more times. Leave campus entirely until further notice. If off campus, do not enter. Now that was at 10:22. Now what we try to do is we spend about a quarter of our time here saying to people, no, we don't think that's the case. But at that moment, nobody really knew what was happening, and you might look like you're exercising prudent precautions. Maybe the wording of that was a little more than was necessary, because it's easy now to look back. Well, that was always nothing. Oh, not necessarily, but there were some people.
It was always nothing.
Always nothing, Mike. Sure. But there were also some people who were saying on Facebook, and that's where all the activity was.
Yes.
It wasn't on.
It was a madhouse.
And it was nutty. I mean, there were 99 views, and there was the guy, I'm going to take all my kids out of school and homeschool them from now on. Really? Yeah. Okay, now wait, you don't know what's happening yet. We have some text message from a cell phone that's just classic, and you're going to want to see this. Go ahead and put that up, Mike.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's essentially, Dale, where'd you pick this image up at?
Well, I got this because it was posted on one of the Facebook sites. We're telling you, watch the show and follow a little bit on Facebook, and you'll have a better idea of what's happening than waiting around for a TV station, or the Courier doesn't even print on Mondays. Go ahead.
Anyway, Mindy asks of her friend, there were armed gunmen there. I was there. Oh no, she's saying this for crying out.
Right, I took their last name.
There were armed gunmen there. I was there. And
but back in the 80s, they would say, end every sentence with a question mark. There were armed gunmen there? I was there? I took their last name.
Allison, what? Multiple question marks. And Mindy again, RCC, Grants Pass. And then Casey, gunmen or armed police? Did you see them? And she said, gunmen. A bunch of us saw them. Yeah.
Now, who?
Mindy's a disturber, is what we would. That's what we would call her back in the day.
Why would people say this kind of thing? There were gunmen. A bunch of us saw them.
Gunmen.
Okay. Now, apparently, the 911 call did. Apparently, according to what we've heard from the PIO, you just heard him say it. apparently there was some kind of thing about, gunmen, some mention of it. And that might lend just a little credence to what she was saying. But as it turns out now, it doesn't look like there were any gunmen. And maybe she was looking at plainclothes officers or whatever. But don't go on Facebook and tell people there were gunmen and a bunch of us saw them.
Yeah.
Why do people do that?
Yeah. Dale, why don't you go over to Facebook and regulate it and tell them not to say the stuff they say?
Let's put Cheryl Walker in charge of all the regulations, and she can tax them too.
Right. Yeah. If you go to some of these places, Josephine County Neighborhood Chat, some of the popular local pages, people will come in there and literally say anything. It's a good source of information in many times. However, all of it must be taken with more than a pinch of salt.
Yes.
And all we want are the salient features.
The salt-bearing
features. That's right. That's all that we want. So, Mike, is there anything more to be said about this? Well, wait, I have one thing over my shoulder here. This is an over-the-shoulder shot. This is a release from the sheriff's office, which basically says nothing. We don't know much. We're looking into it. There were apparently one of the TV stations was out there talking with this Brent Walker earlier, and they were saying that we saw that they were actually using mirrors under cars as the cars were leaving campus
or something. Yeah,
to look for. And I suppose that someone could put that bomb under their car, but I think it's more likely what they were looking for is if somebody else had put it under your car, and I think you'd want to know.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, as it turns out, I happen to have been on the phone. It was not by design, but I have no excuse. It wasn't me that called in. I was on the phone with their safety committee chair at exactly the time that this happened. And I was asking her, well, it looks as if you just had a meeting at the end of last month, the end of September, about safety at RCC. And so I'm interested in coming to the meeting near the end of October and seeing what you have to say about the latest circumstances. And she says, well, what do you mean? That's not going to be kind of a regular meeting. Oh, no, we'll be talking about other kinds of things. Really? She says, yeah, our next regular meeting will be in November sometime, and we don't have any plans to talk about UCC and RCC and what we would do in case of a shooter. And I said, I was very nice. I said, you're the safety committee. Yes, indeed we are. I said, do you see the idea of, do you have an idea that you might accelerate the pace a little bit and talk a bit about, reevaluate maybe, some of your policies about what to do, like hide in place and that kind of stuff. Put a lampshade over your head and that'll protect you. Whatever they would do to hide from a shooter. Will you be now? I wasn't like that with her. Will you be now? I said, no, we don't really have any plans to talk about anything. Really?
Well, Dale, you were talking with a committee, not with a public relations group.
No, that guy might have said something a little more blathery, but she was probably being as honest as she possibly could. She seemed like a nice person, but they don't have any plans to reevaluate tell them, Mike, what it was that Viken, our friend Viken, said, a colleague, said about what they've been practicing recently at Rogue Community College.
Just like lockdown drills in case of an active shooter on campus, which would probably doesn't differ very much from what they would do at an elementary school or middle or high school.
So I'm watching the Sunday morning talk shows. Bill, now if you want in, you're going to have to be belligerent and get in on this conversation because we're two type A personalities and we're just going to tell it as we see it. We're not going to wait around for you now. Okay, so
I'm just waiting for you to make mistakes I can correct.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. All right, with stats, with charts and graphs. Here's how many times they made a mistake this week. Oh, no, not that. So I'm watching the Sunday morning talk shows from DC, and of course they have everybody and their brother talking about this. and Vladimir Putin talking about what fools we are, and well, they didn't do that, but so everybody's talking about the subject, and they have some expert guy come on. I think it was from the FBI, but it might have been somewhere. And he says, well, our latest studies show that while it makes sense at an elementary school to lock all the kids down because you don't want them running around in circles, panicking or something, or just playing a game, which would turn into a game anyway. He said, but at a college campus like UCC, Umpqua Community College in Roseburg, it would make more sense for people to leave the area. Well, it would for a bomb threat, of course, but make more sense in the case of an armed shooter to leave the area and run in every possible direction. Now, not one person running in every direction, but everybody take off in different directions. Okay, so that's not hide in place as they've been practicing at the college.
Right.
So one more thing before we go to Bill and the search that he's been doing for facts, for objective facts. The sheriff doesn't want to talk to us anymore, and it's mostly Bill's fault because he came up with all these charts and graphs that showed things such as during
Did the sheriff tell you that this is the reason why
it was totally a coincidence that once Bill came out with the statistics that the sheriff's contention and other people's contention that the state police were running their wheels off and going crazy trying to keep us safe. The state police then reported, no, we weren't. They waited till after the election, of course, but he didn't like that. And it's okay, totally a coincidence.
I think he wanted to be on our show. I think he wanted to be on our show just as long as it made him look good. And
that's possible. But he specifically mentioned Bill and his statistics.
It's understandable. It's a PR thing.
I feel that way about Bill sometimes. Okay, so, but one more thing. Now we're going to play back a video, and we may post this video too, and we may stop it from time to time and laugh. We'll see. But here's a video that was made a couple of years ago by the Department of Homeland Security. And it tells you what to do, according to the Department of Homeland Security, what you should do if there's an active shooter on campus, meaning not just college campus, but maybe in your workplace. What should you do? Yeah. Keeping in mind that at least one of the experts has said, don't think that you're going to be hiding under a desk. I mean, you got to leave. And even if somebody's about to shoot you, you've got a better chance of surviving if you're running away.
Yes.
And especially if you're doing a zigzag pattern.
The zigzag dance.
Right. So, and some of you will remember the movie I'm talking about, Serpentine. Okay. So go ahead and start playing this video for us, Mike.
We have an active shooter. Stand by for further information.
Tragedies such as the 2007 mass shooting on the campus of Virginia Tech, the 2009 shooting at the Fort Hood, Texas military post, and the 2011 attempted assassination of Representative Gabrielle Giffords at a public appearance in Arizona are all examples of active shooter situations. An active shooter is an individual actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people inside an occupied structure or outside in a populated area. In most cases, there is no pattern or method to their selection of victims. Active shooter situations are unpredictable and evolve quickly. It is important to be prepared for such an event. Make it a practice to identify potential escape routes and have a plan in mind, even if you are just visiting a facility. In the event of a shooting at your location, you must quickly determine the most reasonable way to protect your own life.
That is stupid.
You will need to determine if the best course of action is to evacuate or to hide. Call 911 when it is safe to do so.
Okay, evacuate or hide, but them hiding under the desk.
Oh, it's not over yet. We're just pausing for
effect.
Hilarity.
There are times, and there's those of you who do remember us, those of us who went to school in the 1900s, that they did say, in case of a nuclear attack, hide under your flammable desk.
Yes. Here's an interesting thing, because what I was laughing at was everybody was sitting at a conference room table. You know how it's a conference room, it's a long table and people sitting on either side of it. So they all push their seats back and then crawl under the table. Oh yeah, that's gonna work out great. All the guy has to do is lean down and go boom, 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 boom. In a row
from one end.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Crazy.
Now, honestly, if the first indication you have is someone's walking by your door of your conference room and shooting everybody, well, then maybe that's the only alternative that you have. But on the other hand, really, I mean, if you hear something's going on, hide in place. If something were to happen in that little back room where I spend so much of my time for you, I'm working my fingers to the bone for you, I would probably stay near the camera, and then you could name a high school after me.
Yes.
Yes.
Dale's been lobbying for this high school here for a while.
All right.
Well,
this isn't funny, and no one should ever laugh about anything. Come on.
Well, hey, listen, you should see the freeze frame where Dale told me to, stop the tape. I stopped the tape, and what it's frozen on is hilarious. So hang on just a second here. I'm going to cut this back to you, and it's probably going to move forward, and I will have to bring it back to show you. So here it is.
An accessible escape.
Okay. I'm going to scroll it back a little. She's texting on her phone.
She's right outside of the glass door.
This goes along with the girls at the Diamondbacks game, and they're all on their phones. This gal is running away from a shooter, and she's checking her Facebook status.
Yeah, that's right.
That is amazing.
See where her friends
please at least cross the street before sending somebody a text message. That is hilarious. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, here we go.
There is an accessible escape route. Attempt to evacuate. Be sure to leave your belongings behind. Help others escape if possible, but do not attempt to move wounded people. Evacuate regardless of whether others agree to follow. Warn individuals not to enter an area where the active shooter may be, and follow the instructions of any police officers. If evacuation is not the best option, find a place to hide where the shooter is less likely to find you. And be sure your hiding place does not trap or restrict you or your options for movement. Consider the difference between cover and concealment. Cover will protect you from gunfire, and concealment will hide you from the view of the shooter. Quickly choose the best option. If you are caught out in the the and cannot conceal yourself, or
that's actually pretty good.
That was
overpower the shooter with whatever means are available.
Oh, there you go.
Grab your scissors.
Pause for a second, Mike.
With heavy furniture.
Grab your scissors.
That was the part that was the most controversial of this whole video.
I remember when this came out because people talked about that.
Bill, there's somebody that reaches into a drawer and pulls out scissors.
Yes.
All right.
Well, okay.
Along with duct tape and plastic, right?
Any weapons, okay, I kind of get it, but really, I mean, okay, any weapon at all.
I don't see what is controversial about having somebody there with a weapon. I mean, this idea that somehow you cannot trust your fellow man. Let's take, for instance, a gun-free zone sign on a door. Well, what does that mean?
It's an advertisement saying.
Yeah, it is an advertisement, but what does it mean? It only means something to a law-abiding person. In other words, I have a concealed weapons permit, but I will not take my weapon inside the Ann Basker Auditorium because it's a gun-free zone.
And when I go to the Ann Basker Auditorium, I always wear a tie, not because I respect the three people that are up there, but because I have respect for, theoretically, for the assembly.
Yes, but I'm making a point about law and who obeys laws. And so if I'm walking in there, I'm going to make a point not to bring my gun in there. The person who desires to go in there and kill somebody has no such restriction on himself. He has, he's not filtering himself with a moral filter. He's going, I'm going in there to kill people because guess what? That sign on the door says there's a lot of unarmed people in there. And that's the stupidity of this. So the idea that somehow you shouldn't have a gun in your workplace, that's stupid. And this was last year, I think it was, may have even been earlier this year.
2013.
A guy, well, no, you're I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm
video. Sorry. Yes.
What I'm talking about is there was a guy, he was a fanatical Muslim, self-radicalized here in the States, goes into some workplace and he beheads this lady with a knife. And he is preparing to do it to another one when the owner of the business intercedes with a gun and kills the guy. And you know what? I mean, so had he not been there, how many other people would have had their heads cut off by this guy?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just crazy. So, scissors, I hope you got better than that, but I guess if that's all you got, go with it.
Okay, I don't think we need to look anymore at that video, although we're going to post that thing almost certainly. But Mike, when I talked with this lady this morning about their safety committee at RCC, interesting timing. She asked me, well, what concerns do you have? Well, she asked, and I said, well, I would think at UCC that although they didn't want guns on campus, she says, that's right. And I said, okay, but weren't they grateful when someone did show up with a gun?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right. And so if you're going to have a rule,
In fact,
go ahead, Mike.
In fact, that's what they were all waiting for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was the thing that was everyone stopped to wait for.
Yeah. They were praying that they showed up fast and didn't get hindered by traffic on the way over.
Yeah. And as I said to her, I pointed out something we have not mentioned yet on this show. So it used to be that if you had a heart attack on campus, at any kind of campus, that you hoped that it wouldn't take too long for the fire department or somebody to come with a defibrillator. That thing that starts up your heart, okay? Defibrillator. You know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I hope that's the way it's pronounced. Anyway, but they didn't have one. Now they can put it on the wall. They can have several on a campus, any kind of business. So you've got it right there. Now, I'm not suggesting that they have in case of shoot or break glass, with the gun in there. But I mean, here they've got this thing right there. Now, you may not want everybody walking around with the defib unit like in an elementary school. They all have little backpack with their lunch and their defib unit. Probably not. And I'm not saying they should be armed with guns. Okay, you can simmer down. But the point is that if you're going to wait, if you're going to hide in place and wait for the police to show up with a gun, maybe a few more people would be saved if you had one that was a little closer.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah. It's funny because Dale and I were on the phone this morning. We were talking about this, and they have these very inexpensive now. Where you put your finger on it and it scans your fingerprint and pops open, and you got a 9mm in there or something like that. Why can't you have that in the classroom? It's set to the teacher. Certain teachers, if they cared to, not forcing them to, but if they cared to take some training and have a gun in their classroom, they could. That would open up, with their finger touching it. That's perfectly reasonable. The other thing that we were talking about is, this is many people's objection to guns in the classroom is, well, I don't know if they're trained. They may cause more trouble than they're worth. I'll bet you everybody in that classroom would have taken somebody walking in with a gun who had never even fired one before. They would have been fine with that guy showing up, in the rooms. So I understand the apprehension. Let's get people trained that want to be trained. Let's allow people, I'd really like to know the stats on how many people who have concealed handgun licenses flip out and start shooting people and don't take their charge seriously. And when you have a concealed weapons permit, it's not strictly for your own protection. A lot of the times, what motivates me to carry is the idea that I may be out in public and I don't want to be there and not be able to help somebody else who is being shot at. You know,
I don't think the bill's going to have the stats about that today. This is a launch look at stats. But the other way to put this is, we have people in our community. I think who's that guy that was running the press conference that never really was a press conference because he wouldn't answer any questions? What's the name of that guy? He was there talking about the shooters that were way off in the woods. It took us 45 minutes to get there, if you remember. He was running a press conference at the front steps of the courthouse. Anyway, this guy was upset that anybody had guns anywhere.
Dave Strahan. Yeah, Dave Strahan. He was in his group, and I think it was somebody else in his group that had set this press conference up. But a press conference, by its very nature, is where you have an announcement for the press, and then of course they're going to ask you some questions.
Well, he wasn't prepared to answer. We're not here to answer questions. What kind of press release? Anyway, so there may be some people in the community. God bless them. I understand a little bit. Well, we don't even want any police, in our schools. That's just aggressive, and it's just wrong. And we ought to be passive, and we ought to be peaceful. Well, okay, they have their point of view. Okay, but how far away would you like them to be? Because at a certain point, you may need them. How far away? Oh, let's keep them out of the classroom. Okay, let's keep them off campus. Okay, let's keep them more than 5 miles away, 30 minutes away, an hour and a half away. How far away would you like them to be? And the same thing goes with some kind of thing that can stop people. How far away would you like, would you like the gun locked up in the principal's office? Well, it's dang sight closer than waiting for the police to come.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And to me, even that's too far away. But, it's funny. There's a comment that comes in all forms, Facebook meme or whatever. And it says, well, you may not you may not be a Christian. You may not be religious. And you may not like guns, but if there's an active shooter in your area, you'll pray to God that somebody shows up with a gun fast.
And that's the only thing that stopped this guy. Now, that this hero fellow that took 7 shots.
Seven bullets.
Now, this fellow, he took his own shot. He saved the lives in a very roundabout, strange way of 6 other people who would have been shot in the head. He took 7 shots.
Yeah. Right. Perhaps. No, that's true. And actually, it wasn't even and this happens in so many of these cases, that as soon as these people, they're such cowards. You wouldn't think, oh, wait a minute. Oh, let's not call them cowards, blah, blah, blah. No, these people are cowards, so much so that as soon as the threat of them being defeated by somebody comes on the scene, they take their own lives. And that's what happened with this guy. He shot himself in the head. He wasn't killed by police, and this is what everybody thinks happened. And there was another situation not long ago, just a few years ago, here in a mall up near Portland, where there was a shooter, and he was going through shooting people, and some guy had his concealed carry. He pulled his concealed carry and was coming up towards the guy. The guy saw him, went around a corner, stuck the gun in his mouth, and pulled the trigger.
Now imagine that
end of the plan.
Had targeted some school, okay, as happened in this case. And now let's suppose that in Illinois Valley there was a Cave Junction School of Guns. He's not going to go there. What?
Right. This is how clear this point should be to people, is that they never attack police stations. Why do they not do that? And there's a statistic out there that since 2009, on a certain number of attacks, of these mass shooter attacks, 92% of them have been in gun-free zones. 92%. Okay, Bill, why don't you name for me and tell me where are all the gun-free zones in Josephine County?
Yeah, where's your chart or graph?
Schools, courts, and hospitals or something.
Yeah, that's it. So in other words, you're going to have to, number one, you're going to have to identify what that is. You're going to have to determine whether or not there are people there at the time. And then you've got to transport yourself to that. They're not walking into even a local deli downtown or something and shooting people up. Because guess what? People around here have handguns.
Yeah.
You know?
That's right.
So
I'm a fairly peaceful kind of guy, and I was raised in an atmosphere with a dad who was a veteran and a mom that worked for the Forest Service, and we had guns in the house. They never let me touch the guns, okay? But you know, they were there. But I am probably not the kind of person. Oh, this was a smart thing to say, that would carry a gun with me, right? Still, but
we got to get Dale out to the range. Let's take Bill to the range. Bill, we can do this. That would be great. I think we'll videotape it and it'll be on the show. That'd be fantastic.
It'll be hilarious. I took hunter safety when I was like 11. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I got the top. I mentioned this on the show before. I got the top grade in the whole class. There's these old grizzled guys, who I got the best kind of score, you know. But the second part of the class was going out and shooting at targets, I guess, to be sure that you weren't going to shoot yourself. You'd find out quickly. And they were targets that were in the shape of a bunny rabbit. I was 11. I was 11. Now, if they give me a target that was like concentric circles, that would be a little different. But something about that, I just couldn't hit that bunny no matter what.
Yes, I'm sorry to hear that.
So even though
that's all I have to say about that
background, even though I come from that kind of background, I would appreciate it if I'm under attack. Let's suppose it's Keith Eck once again attacking me, okay? Because he did. And if I'm under attack and a more concentrated, you know, like, I think I would appreciate the fact if a grandmother near me pulled out her, you know, Glock and stopped this guy.
Awesome. Yeah. Hey, you know what I think would be really good is what you could do, just to do your part, Dale, is you could carry around a container with these. They have these targets now that you just peel and stick them. You know, and you could bring targets with concentric circles, and you run up and slap the gunman on the back with a target, and then okay, guys, I did my part. You take over.
That's right. So that's how I end up in this argument. Agreeing with these.
I'm going to jump in here, Dale.
Yes, there you go. Okay, good.
Yeah, when you said the bunny rabbit, I think you're touching on something that's got a real serious vein to it, and that is that this whole issue of gun control does go back to a very strong basis in people. It is yes, it's learned in some cases, but one incident with you in your childhood has colored. Now, did it totally change you? No, but it colored your view. And I think we're dealing with a lot of people that are back at those ages and various things that have happened. Because this is not generally, in my research, not a topic that the articles are written fairly and balanced and so forth. Virtually everyone is writing from their bias. Now, not everyone, but it's very common to see the bias in this. Therefore, very, very difficult to find out true reality for a variety of reasons. But the emotion of it is exactly what you just touched on, and I think there are many people, I have people in my family, very emotional about this. But we've never been able to sit down and discuss the reality of, the facts. And
that's
that
why we asked Bill.
Piece is ongoing.
That's why we asked Bill to get involved in this, because when we were looking, I was one of the people who said, I find it hard to believe that the crime rate in the United States and in our area is going down. I was a non-believer in that. I just, that's counterintuitive. I find that hard to believe. Then Bill came with statistics, more statistics, things from the Oregon State Police, that we even had the chief of police say, we thought that the numbers were going way up, and as it turns out, no, they weren't. I mean, he confessed that at one of the meetings that was promoting the levy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what is the truth? That's why we asked Bill to get involved, because he's going to look at this calmly and rationally. And what he just told you is he's finding that to get calm, rational statistics, you have to start with people who already have made up their mind, and they're trying to find the stats to support their position. What the heck?
Yeah, it's very, it is not a nonpartisan issue very much. It immediately, almost immediately in all the articles, you can see the buzzwords that say, oh, okay, I see where they're going to go with this. Now, that's not true of everyone, and I think there are people who attempt to research this right back to the core stats. I ended up reading one article since we talked last, and there were, the article was, I don't know, I'm going to guess maybe 800 words. I read for an hour and a half the ensuing discussion, and I read pretty rapidly. It went on and on and on with the variations. This was a fairly sophisticated group that was responding, because they were aware that the reality of it was very, very difficult to really pin down. And I'm finding that immediately when I went out into the larger picture. The best I can offer you at all is generalities of what's generally being said. And some of these places go directly back to FBI statistics. Others gather a variety of groups that have put out statistics, like Center for Disease Control, which surprised me that they have done anything, but they're actually being asked to do something by the president and so forth. So there's not just the FBI stats, but the FBI stats are really the main thing that people go to. But what I'm also discovering is there's a wealth of information in the FBI stats that are buried there, but few are willing to spend their time to dig it out because it's not consumable by the public. The public wants 2 or 3 numbers and somebody to declare which one of those numbers is bad, and then they can run around and repeat that. The truth of the matter is it's far, far, far more complex. I was kidding with, I think, Mike, you, where when I got into this, I likened it to finding a crate of apples and oranges and kumquats and raisins, and go ahead and make sense out of that. It's got a huge amount of issues surrounding it. But let me give you what is kind of an average. I don't think too many people would disagree with these numbers. They come out of FCI stats. There's quoted 2 or 3 places I've found. And that is, in America today, though today is never today. Today is about 2 years ago, 12, 13 at the very best. Most are quoting stats from 2011 on a lot of these studies. But 86 people die daily from guns. 53 of those 86 people are suicides.
Wow.
And that's right. Well over half. It's running 60 to 61% right now.
Wow.
And I am not clear whether that is involving active military who are not in the United States. So it depends on who you read. In America or American citizens. I don't know. But we lose another 4 out of the suicides. We lose 420 from active and inactive veterans a year at least. That is 14's stats.
Boy, that's more than one a day.
More than one a day. And the veterans, the actual active duty are going up. They have been down a little bit, but they're going up recently. But the inactive are going slightly down in the last 12 months or 15 months.
So to do a little summary of that, not only are we involved occasionally, some people say more than that, in wars of foreign intervention, where we necessarily then, to keep our people safe, are killing other people and their families and etc., some by accident. But we're also ending up with people who are so mentally damaged from all that they're taking their own lives.
Yeah. And we're actually, there was 1 year, and I don't think it was this last year, but maybe a year ago, where there were more deaths from suicide in the active military than there were from the enemy.
Wow.
And
oh my gosh,
that is
that's amazing. Well, this is why we wanted you.
I wonder why. I wonder how much different that is now than it has been historically.
The suicide rate in the military, and I really didn't do any very much depth in that. I just wanted to see how many out of the 53 a day were military. About I think it's 22 a day are the veterans. But that's I will do what everyone does with that figure and say that they have come up with that figure. It's being used. There is quite a bit of caution. That caution doesn't seem to be hugely different, but somebody say 18, everybody agrees. Somebody say 25, only a few agree, but 22 seems to be, the general agreement.
One of the things that, Bill, one of the things that kind of struck me about this movie, American Sniper, I'm not saying you need to go see that or anything, but when this guy comes back from 4 tours in Iraq, there's a scene that really hit me because I saw it with my dad, who was in World War II and Korea. And we were driving along one time, and he started to swerve a little bit. I said, "Dad, what's up? What's happening?" "Well, that car behind us, I'm kind of worried." And I talked to him about it afterwards. He was having a mini flashback about vehicles that could potentially be putting him in danger. Yep. I don't mean strange driving, but you see this in the movie American Sniper. The guy's looking over his shoulder and he sees cars coming up behind him. They're kind of reminding him of cars that he saw in Iraq. And my mother told me that when they were first married, that she'd wake up and he'd have her by the throat and he was asleep. And he's almost ready to choke her. And she says, "What are you doing?" He said, oh. And he was so apologetic. But it was such an experience for him over there. He was a sergeant. So, he had a lot of people that he was trying to keep alive, especially keep alive from a brand new lieutenant who was saying, "We're going to charge up that hill straight up there." "No, the hell we're not." Okay, sorry. But that's what he said. And it affected him he'd sometimes wake up screaming. This is my own father. Yep. Because he was remembering the teenagers in the Waffen-SS uniforms, the black uniforms, that were trying to surrender. But after Malmedy, they didn't take any prisoners because they shot the Americans they captured. And they said, "Okay, no more people in black uniforms." And he spoke enough German to know that they were trying to stop, but nobody was going to give them any mercy at that point, and it warped him.
Yep.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Well, the cost of war certainly isn't the dollars. It's way beyond that. Let me finish out our 86 people here, guys. We're talking out of the 86, we have 30 murders. So in that is where we really have a discussion to be had. Where that starts to get real iffy right away is, well, where is that and what's happening? There's no question that the inner city, large cities have significantly more per thousand murders than the rural and the small and so forth. That's just a given. But you include all those, we have 30 murders. We have 2 accidents with guns, and we have 1 police killing. And
just to clarify, this is U.S. daily, right?
U.S. daily.
Gotcha.
86. Now, I then broke down some of this is all guns. This is homicide or death from guns in the U.S. So I said, okay, well, what's going on here? And looked at the breakdown. And the one that surprised me is because everything I've ever heard in the last 5 to 10 years even is the assault rifles, the AR-15s in particular. And so, these assault rifles, the mass killings, and even up in URR here, there supposedly was an assault rifle. I don't know if that's true, but it always makes the press, it seems.
Yeah, no, he was using a pistol. That's what I heard. Okay,
well, in the category, they have generally 3 categories. They have handguns, unbroken down from that. I don't know what calibers, I don't know what sizes, but handguns. They have rifles and shotguns and other. Now, other really interests me because the percentage is pretty high, and I end up saying, just a minute, why can't we keep track better on other? But that's evidently the little wastebasket that they don't, they clean up on. Rifles.
Wait a second. People are using waste buckets as weapons?
As much. Hey, I'll tell you, when you get into it, they're using bleach.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
they use all kinds of stuff.
If somebody's going to kill, it's amazing. In fact, what I was going to say on the rifles, only 3.8% are deaths by rifles, and that's all rifles.
Yeah.
That's not assault or anything else. So
right, then that statistic becomes even smaller when you're talking about assault rifles.
Yeah, assault rifles in the category of rifles, that's 3.8% of all murders are rifles, and that's all we hear about.
Right.
Well, knives are 13.0%.
Yeah.
So it's
how about that?
Assault, all rifles put together are 4 times less than knife killings.
Yeah.
Now, Bill, tell us about what's happening with knife killings in Great Britain, because the president used an example. Lots of people say, well, when Britain started banning, what's happening with knife killings in Britain?
I read 2 articles, and that's where I begin to get the creative kumquats.
Yes.
What we're seeing and what is true is that there is an increase, and people are discussing it and are concerned about it. The amount of increase seems to be all over the place for the little reading I've done, and I'll underline a little reading. I've read 3 articles out of Britain about this. But there is definitely, all 3 articles were concerned that the rate of knifings were going up over their traditional rate. And so that's an issue. It's knives, by the way, have and sharp objects is the way they put it, have remained. They're in since I looked at a few graphs from 79 to 2008, and they're pretty steady through there. They go up and down, but they've always been over rifles, and handguns have always been way at the top. Shotguns are 4.1% of the killings, and you rarely, if ever, hear anybody talk about, let's ban shotguns. It just, it doesn't come up because they're killing more than rifles, and you hear rifles every day of the week.
Yeah, you know what? I think, AR-15 is a scary-looking weapon. And that's the thing that affects people. It's an emotional thing, and let's use the emotion to get at our objective.
Yeah, to give you an example, by the way, the assault rifle is not a gun term. That is a political term that came into the lexicon as a way to describe scary things.
Sure.
And the AR-15, which I found out brand new to me, in the hands of the best shooters, can do 45 to 60 rounds a minute. So that's 1 a second for an expert shooter. If you get an assault, we want to call it, or a military rifle, which is an M4A1?
M4, which is basically an AR-15 with a collapsible butt stock, 16-inch barrel. It's the same thing, but it has a select fire switch that you can then go full auto if you want to.
Well, how many?
The full auto. full auto is 860 rounds a minute.
Yeah.
So you tell me the difference. I mean, the AR-15 all of a sudden becomes just a pop gun, as opposed to what we want to really believe and know is an assault
Yes,
rifle.
but and now okay, we'll really get into the weeds if we start talking about the effectiveness on full auto fire is very low. I mean, in most cases, full auto fire is for effect. And it's basically keep the guys' heads down. You're far more effective on a semi-automatically in picking off your targets one at a time than you would be on full auto. But that's
great. Okay, school shooters, now take note. Mike will start a class for you on this subject.
Yeah, but listen, that you would either have to make the parts to make your gun full auto yourself, or you would have to be a class 3 gun dealer and be able to acquire fully automatic weapons, and chances are that those people are not going to be so in 99.99999% of all of these cases, you're never going to have a full auto gun.
But it does bring you to the question of what exactly are those kids doing in the basement, and do their parents understand what they're doing down there?
Well, yeah.
Well, as soon as they become able to be 3D printed, I'd worry more, because that's what if they can do it from their laptop.
They're pretty much there. You can take they do have 3D printed weapons. All you need is the parts kit. And AR-15 parts kits are a dime a dozen out there. Well, they're not a dime a dozen, but they're easily available, and you don't need anything to buy it. And this is an interesting thing, is because of the fact that AR-15 is such a parts gun. In other words, it's a conglomeration of parts that are very, very common, that now many people build their own. And they get what's called the lower receiver, which is what is considered to be the gun. And then the upper receiver, you can just buy one of those online. They'll just send it to you. And that's not a gun. So you basically just go, okay, I want that upper receiver. You get it, and you throw your parts kit in there. You attach it to your lower, and you've got a gun.
Now, guys, you're geeking out on me here, okay? No, stop. I think of upper receivers where I'm hoping I'm going to go after I die. Now, Bill,
that's why the lower receiver's the evil part.
That's right. And when they're talking about 3D printed parts, for those of you who don't follow the geeky stuff like we do, you can actually arrange to have your computer control something that will sort of make little plastic parts for you at home. You could do it right there on your desktop and print out the beginnings of a gun, just like a laser printer, except it's laying down this is another show. Okay, so Bill, please summarize.
Just go to YouTube or Google.
Yes, please summarize for us, Bill, what your experience has been in trying to find objective facts and figures.
Another thing that people need to know, because this has been unduly reported, and that is, with all the mass shootings, this goes back I think 12 years. All mass shootings in the United States, and these are all the ones we've heard about, plus the smaller ones, because mass shooting is considered 4 people or more. All mass shootings in the United States for, say, 12 years amounts to 1% of all the deaths from guns. So we hear, oh, this is a terrible thing, and oh my God, but we're actually only talking 1% of what's going on.
Yes, but
and
it provokes
the real
highest emotional response, though.
That's right, and the reporting on it is huge. And I'll throw in one of the little things, kind of with the topic and off the topic. But I ran across an article that said, a war on police, and someone said, well, actually, no. What there is a media talking about police and our police deaths from service, are down in the last year. But Fox News in particular, they looked at all of the reporting, and Fox News did more articles on police dying in the last 12 months than they did in the previous 4 years put together.
We see that at KJO, the KJO news that they print. I mean, you go there and you look at the news list that they have, and every possible thing that could be considered. There's a police report, and it's like 3 out of 4 stories, I think, are about crime. It's part of their thing about passing a levy. Bill, we're just about out of time here, but I'd like to make a specific request of you to put things in perspective for the next time that we get together on this subject, and that is, could you do some kind of, I don't know, this is probably going to be very difficult to show, but how many people are dying from automobile deaths? How many people are dying from, let's say, lung cancer from smoking? How many people are dying from a toaster dropped into the bathtub? How many people are dying from guns and knives? And
we're never going to see Bill again.
Yeah, but to try to put it in perspective, because there are some people who were criticizing, some people from the African American community that were criticizing their African American president for talking about school shootings that mostly involved white students, mostly, and saying, no, but wait a minute, what about the intercity deaths that account for whatever that number was, 40, 50 every day?
Oh, yeah.
And where's your outrage about that, Mr. President?
And the stats in Chicago for the month of September was something like 300 and something murders. And it was, well, wait a minute. It was, I forget what the number of murders was, but I think it was 300 and something actual shootings during that month's period, and their total for the year to date was over 1,800. Oh, well, no, it was 2,100 shootings total. Of that, a certain 400 or 500 of them were murders or something.
And before we get to the point where we say things are so totally different today, they never were like this before. Now, hold on a second. There are people who were alive in our audience too, that were alive in the 50s. Okay. Now you think back a little bit to old movies that you've seen in black and white that you've seen on this subject. There were kids in gangs, that were knifing each other, and some of them were dying. No, they didn't have the money or the wherewithal to buy a gun, but they were knifing each other. You go back to 1969, okay? Or 68, there was some movie, Franco Zeffirelli's version of Romeo and Juliet. And what were the little gangsters doing at that point? They were pulling out swords and dueling it out and killing each other sometimes. That was a little bit before Chicago.
Yeah.
That's some kind of mental illness or toughness or whatever. My guess would be that this kind of thing has been happening for millennia, and now it's more automated.
Yeah, but you know what? To Bill's point, he was talking about the effect and how this is such a small number of the actual murders, but political opportunity exists in these situations, and there is a part of society that wants to use every single opportunity to achieve their political goal. Now, ironically, the current mayor of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, who used to be, I believe he was the chief of staff or something like that for Obama in the first term.
Yes.
Here's a quote from him. "You never let a serious crisis go to waste." And what I mean by that is, it is an opportunity to do things that you could not do before. And so you take the unfortunate circumstance of the death of some people, even though it represents a very, very small statistic of the total number of people who are killed over an entire year, and you go to the wall to try to achieve your political goal with that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to sum up, guys, because we are a little over time. Sorry, Bill. We're going to have you on again, of course. Here's one of the things that our friends, and we do have friends who are on various sides of this, need to think about, and that is, let's suppose that some of you have this goal that guns would be entirely banned in America. Okay? And in Canada and Mexico and anywhere we could get them from, entirely banned. And that the Second Amendment was completely overturned. It's the Second Amendment, but completely overturned. So here's the question to you. Do you really believe that then would wipe out this problem of mental illness of people who, well, they would never use a knife as they're experiencing in Great Britain. They would never use any other kind of weapon, including Bill's infamous wastebaskets. They would never do any of those things because we would now solve the entire problem. Do you think so? Really?
Yeah. No, thinking people, please note,